her son who was in foster care. And this is a mother who had a drink problem, went into rehab. She had not at that stage had a drink for 2.5 years. She had subsequently gotten rid of an abusive boyfriend. She had married an engineer from the Ukraine. She was here in Ireland. And she was working. She was on her best behavior trying to get her kids back. That woman fought so hard to get her children back. But the judge asked her son of 5 who he wanted to live with. And he said, he pointed to the foster, he couldn't even say it, he just pointed to the foster parents. And the next time she got to see her son, he was crying, he was upset, he had lost weight. He said, Mommy, the lady told me I had to do that. But it was too late. She never got that son back. Never got him back. And it suited them to have his voice heard because it's already being done. And it's interesting because in law, there's a thing called spousal privilege. And no spouse has to testify against, no wife or husband has to testify against their partner or their spouse. But a child is going to be told, you're old enough. You choose. And the whole thing about childhood is we who love them are supposed to make those decisions for them. It's a very weighty thing to make a child decide their fate. It's a cruel thing. And even if they choose what maybe was the best decision, they'll always wonder, and they blame themselves, whereas at least they could see, well, other people made this decision for me. Okay, so that's just a thought on that one. And just a couple of yeah, no, that's fine. But just to say about labor, that the O'Donoghue case, which was the first education case for children with special needs, it was a Labour coalition government. It was a Labour education minister that fought the mother, Marie O'Donoghue, to say that her child and children like him were ineducable for 3 years through the courts. A Labour. Oh, sorry, one more thing, and I know I've given you a lot, but just one more thing. The other problem here is they use the word rights, and they have 2 different meanings. In the current Constitution, when we talk about natural and imprescriptible rights of the child, we're talking about these. This is the way one judge described them. The child's natural rights spring primarily from the natural rights of every individual to life, to be reared and educated, to liberty, to work, to rest and recreation, to the practice of religion, to follow his or her conscience. And it says the right to life necessarily implies the right to be born, the right to preserve and defend, and have preserved and defended that life, the right to be maintained at a proper human standard of matters of food, clothing, and habitation. The obvious, the no-brainers, the thing parents work very hard every day to give their children. But the new rights, and if a parent fails their child in that, for physical or moral reasons, you can see why we as a state, we as a community, we as a people have to help that child, right? These are the basics. But these are the new rights that will be added to those. And these are the rights, the UN rights. There's the freedom of expression, and this is elaborated on. They can express themselves in any way, through any medium, to anybody, in any country, have access to every form of expression, every form of media, etc., that a child must be able to have access to everything. Now, any good parent keeps the computer where they can keep an eye on it, right, etc., etc. But according to that right, you're actually failing your child. You're going against his right. So, and that puts a whole new light on the new definitions of failure, right? As opposed to not feeding your child, it's also restricting the computer, right, in what's called our in-camera courts, our family courts, and these things are happening. I've had a much smaller glimpse on you, but I could say exactly the same. What's happened is 20 years ago we bought into the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. We didn't sign it with any reservation. I mean, we didn't ratify it with any reservation whatsoever. In other words, we didn't say, well, we ratify it in as far as it agrees with our Constitution. So we ratified it even though it disagreed with our Constitution. So we've been slowly implementing it in child policies, and not everything is bad. We've been slowly implementing it, but we've been constantly stopped from any obvious manifestation of it by the Constitution and by the rights of the family, etc., by people like my case and things like that. It's constantly. And in fact, if you go back to the UN records, after my case, the UN and several cases where Judge Peter Kelly was getting at the state for their treatment of delinquents, just pick them up and then dump them back on the street, no rehabilitation, no education, no nothing. And the UN committee in New York criticized Ireland for the kind of high court judgments that were being handed down because they weren't in line with the convention, they were in line with the Constitution. So this has been going on. The one place where the Constitution isn't getting in the way is in these courts that he's talking about. It's purely the convention that's being implemented. But in anything within public perception, the Constitution is considered an obstacle to full implementation into the public realm, outside of the secret courts. So by looking at the secret courts, we get an idea of what we could be experiencing far more widely once we get rid of the constitutional roadblocks. And for 20 years, and this is all a matter of public record, the documents are in the UN, you can look them up online. The UN Committee on the Rights of the Child, which like the IMF in finance, like the European Commission in environment and many other laws, the UN Committee is now in charge of our policy for children, except where the Constitution stops it. And the thing is that once they've been demanding that we have this constitutional referendum, and Frances Fitzgerald said it when this judge came out and said we didn't need this. She said for 20 years people have been demanding a change. She forgot to say it wasn't Irish people. It was people in New York.
Welcome you to